Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here to review the next Winona Ryder movie. And that movie is Edward Scissorhands. Now, I think this might be probably one of the better movies that I end up watching of hers. And I'm glad that I was finally able to watch it because I have not watched it for years and years for one of the stupidest reasons. So I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on why I have not watched this movie yet, and then tell you what I thought about it, and then talk about Winona's character too, of course. So as a kid, I would borrow movies from the library a lot, and I would typically rent, I think my favorite movie to get from the library was either Adventures in Babysitting, or Bride of Frankenstein, or Hammer Dracula movies, or this documentary about horror. It was called Halloween, The Happy Haunting of America. It's actually on YouTube, so if you want to watch it, it's very good. Very fun. There's a lot of horror museums that they show throughout that documentary. And this was one of those ones where I was thinking about watching it. And I said, Safi, what do you think? Should I get it? Because she used to do this thing where, she obviously doesn't do it anymore. But she used to do this thing where she would have to watch the movie ahead of time to make sure that there was no sexual stuff in it. If there was sexual stuff, she would have to watch it with me and cover my eyes when that came on. And even if it was just kissing stuff. So if you guys remember Psycho 2, the scene where the teenagers kiss in the basement, she covered my eyes in that scene. And then she wrote a review where she was like, there's a kissy scene. That was really funny. And so I asked her, should I watch Edward Scissorhands? And she said, I don't know. She's like, that movie, she basically told me the whole movie, or I guess the main plot. She's like, there's this guy with scissors on his hands, and he goes to this town. They like him at first, but then they hate him. There's all these people that hate him, and then they kill him at the end because they think he did something bad. And I was like, ooh, that sounds depressing as hell. And so for years and years, I thought that this movie would end with Edward getting killed by a mob, an angry mob, and I thought, I don't want to watch that. I literally don't want to watch that. That sounds horrible, awful. There's no way you can make me watch that, except if I have to celebrate Winona Ryder by watching all of her movies. That's the only way you can get me to do that. It's kind of like with Edward, where it's the only way that he'll do something is if Winona Ryder tells him to. And honestly, I would literally do the same thing if I were in Edward's shoes, which I'm glad I'm not. And for years and years, I avoided it like the plague. I did do a project on Vincent Price in middle school. Of course, Vincent Price, this is his last movie. And I dressed up like Vincent Price, kind of. I wore this fake mustache. I had to do this presentation on him in school. And I was walking down the hallway. And there was this woman with a butch lesbian haircut, and she comes up to me, and I don't know how else to describe her, but she comes up to me and she rips or she tells me, take that mustache off. I wasn't allowed to have a mustache or even wear a fake mustache for a day. So I was forced to take the fake mustache off, and then I just put it back on anyways, and I just said, fuck that bitch. And I went and did my presentation, and this is where the funny part comes in. There was this old guy, and he came up to me and he said, hello, Sonny.
Do you know what was Vincent Price's last movie?
And I was like, the House on Haunted Hill remake? Like, I didn't know. Because, like, I knew about Vincent Price, but I didn't know, like, every single little detail. I had never seen this movie, obviously. And he was like, no, it was Edward Scissorhands. And I was like, oh, yeah, the movie I'm never going to watch. I didn't tell him that, but yeah. So that's kind of like my history with this movie. I've just been avoiding it, and I'm so glad that it wasn't what I thought it was. In fact, I'll just say that I read the plot beforehand because I really didn't want to watch a movie where a misunderstood character would get, like, brutally murdered by an angry mob at the very end. I didn't read, like, the full detailed plot, but I just read, like, the basic story of, you know, beginning, middle, end. Because I just didn't want to watch that at all. And it would have been a very negative review for sure. I mean, I would have torn this movie apart like Edward tears things apart with his scissor hands. And let's start off talking about Edward. He's a character. He's a really cool character. You know, I mean, he's awesome in every way, shape, or form. He's probably one of the greatest characters ever created in fictional history. I mean, it is pretty funny because, like, we don't really know a lot about the Vincent Price character. I'd say that's one of my minor critiques with the movie is that I know that the movie was trying to be mysterious, but I'd really like to know more about, like, the Vincent Price mad scientist character. I'd like to know more about, like, his life and how he was able to, you know, make a person from scratch like this. And also, if you think about, like, what he did in the first place, I mean, it's really bizarre if you think about it, because he gave this guy scissors for hands. But he gave Edward a dick as well. I mean, there's never any point in the movie where they talk about Edward going to the bathroom or anything, but he gave he crafted Edward a custom penis. He gave him a penis before he gave him actual hands. I mean, he must be like a really bad, messed up guy, because any person who knows what it's like going to the bathroom knows that when you are on the toilet and you can't, and it's hard to wipe, it's hard to use toilet paper. Like, can you imagine Edward trying to use toilet paper? Okay, like, that is messed up that Vincent Price would do that to him. And just what about in general? Like, he's having trouble aiming, and he's got to use his hand. Oh, I know what he could do. Guys, check this out. I just came up with a life hack for Edward Scissorhands. He's going to be thanking me by the end of this bitch. Edward, you know, he's got the scissors on his hands, and you can see he still has the handles from the scissors. I mean, you can see that throughout the movie. This is not a conspiracy theory, okay? This is a fact. You take the scissor part where you put your fingers in, you take one of those, and you use that to aim better, so that you can take a better, like, so Edward, he really, I guess he wasn't fully fucked up, but still, like, I think it's bizarre how Vincent Price, or I guess maybe, does he have to go to the bathroom? Because that's the other weird thing, is that he's in this castle all by himself for years after Vincent Price's character dies. The mad scientist dies just before he can give him hands, which is a tragedy within itself. But Edward is all alone for years, and it's like, what does he eat? How does he go to the bathroom? How does he I guess he never washes. I mean, that part's just kind of whatever. But like, these are questions that kind of bother me because I feel like the movie is so perfect that it's bothering me as like a critiquing person, not a critic, because that's not what I want to be. But like, I'm just a fan. I'm just a fan on the sidelines, because I like to make movies. I don't like to just critique them. I mean, I think critiquing is like really boring, honestly. Like because a lot of the stuff just feels like common sense to me, because I just think of it in terms of like what I would fix personally, and like if it was my movie, like these are all the things that I would answer and that I would be bothered about, because like it's weird. Like he's not really fully a human, but he is a human. I mean, he is human. He is part machine, part human. He is human, guys. I mean, he is able to eat. He has skin. He's got a body. They never addressed even, like, what happens to the food after he eats it if he doesn't have to go to the bathroom, you know? Like, I remember there was the Casper Haunted Christmas. If you guys have ever seen that really good animated movie, it's a fantastic film. A very fun Christmas movie. I watch it every year. The part where they parody the psycho shower scene is really hilarious. Like, this guy, he uses a ghost as like a towel, and he wipes off his junk with the ghost. And it's basically like the ghost is the one going through this horrifying scene, and it's like it's just so hilarious. But anyways, in that movie, the ghosts all are allowed to eat with the family at the table at Christmas time, and they eat like all the food, and then the girl looks down on the ground, and there's chopped up like digestive food all over the floor, and it's so gross and disgusting, but it makes sense because they can't digest that food. That food's not going to go into their bodies. They don't have that. It's just going to go right through them. But what happens? Because Edward, he drinks alcohol. He eats meals, I guess. I mean, because they start off the movie very practically, where they show him adjusting to the home when the main story is you got this makeup saleswoman, and she's sick and tired of selling to these same old people all the time, and she's having a rough day, and she decides to try the castle, and she finds Edward and invites him to move in with her and her family. And by the way, this is the mom from The Lost Boys. I have only ever seen her in The Lost Boys and this, and I'm convinced that like any movie she's in is like perfection, because like it blows my mind to be in like The Lost Boys and Edward Scissorhands. Like, that's just fucking awesome. That would definitely like be like the dream, to have like those two movies at the top of your catalog. But she brings him home, and right off the bat, like he's having a lot of trouble. I mean, he has scratches on his face from day-to-day life. And that's why I'm saying, like, what is the day-to-day life for him? He's got perfectly white teeth. He's got the certain haircut. So he gives himself haircuts, I think. Like, there's this one point where the woman is really nervous, and in fact, I was nervous, but I didn't think about the fact that, oh yeah, he probably already gave himself haircuts, because how else would the hair not grow? Or, I don't know, like, there's just so many questions that I have here. But I can kind of turn my brain off, at the same time, and just enjoy the movie, because, spoiler alert, like, to me, this is like a perfect movie, practically. Like, I love this movie like more than anything in the universe. like, except for the ending part, which we'll get to because the ending really pissed me off. But they start off, and I think my favorite part was they had this dinner scene, and you got to live through Edward, through his POV. And you see his Scissorhands trying to eat the food, and it's just so cool, like, looking through that POV and seeing the Scissorhands, like, trying to, grab the items on the table. There's this one hilarious part where the mom is like, would you like some butter for your bread? And she's like, she's already been seeing him, like, struggle the entire time, and she offers him some butter, and he's just like, he's like, he gets it off, and he puts it on the bread, and it's so funny, because, like, he's having so much trouble. But that's what I'm saying, like, it's obvious from that scene, he's never eaten food before, so it's obvious then you can infer that he doesn't need to eat. But so then where does the food go? It is a valid question, I would say. That is a valid question. Because also, if you think about it, there's a couple other points to add to this discussion. Later on in the movie, they make a very valid point when he goes on to this TV show to talk about his life and talk about who he is, I guess. This one woman says, if you get your hands corrected, then you'll be normal, and then you won't ever be on a TV show again. But I thought, wait a second, that's not true. If he's a person that was just created out of nothing, then he would still be a special person anyways, because he's like a Frankenstein's monster, and that all by itself is worth talking about. So, yeah. So, but that means, like, because if she's saying he's a normal person, then he is able to go to the bathroom. He is able to eat, isn't he? What do you guys think? Like, this movie is just amazing. Like, just, why didn't anyone ever say anything about this movie? Like, the people made me think that he dies at the end. Like, what the fuck is up with that? I would have watched this movie when I was a kid if I knew that he didn't die at the end of the movie. And you know what Safi did? Safi pulled the old JFK conspiracy, or she pulled the old conspiracy card, and she was like, I never watched that movie, Marco. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, yeah, okay. Sure. So she obviously, she doesn't remember, like, I guess watching it and then turning it off and basing her opinions off of that one viewing experience. Or I don't know what the story is, because, I would have watched this movie as a little 6 or 7 year old if I knew that he didn't die at the end. I'm so fucking mad I never watched this movie as a kid. That was such a huge mistake. But yeah, what else was I going to mention I'm trying to remember. I really I love the part where he was on television and he reached up to touch the microphone with his scissor, and then it electrocuted him, and it just like go boo! He fell off the chair. I mean, that was like the funniest thing in the entire movie. Like, I was laughing for like an entire minute when I saw that scene. But yeah, another thing to mention with this movie, before we continue our discussion of Edward, the enigmatic Edward, is that this movie is really, really stylish. I loved how the houses were very colorful, and this looked like an entirely different world to me. The thing that I really loved about it, or the thing that I noticed and I really loved, was that it reminded me a lot of the town from The Grinch, Whoville, where they had the Grinch Mountain, and then you go down and you have the little town. Like, that's what it reminded me of, and I thought, this is really, really cool. Like, I wish that every movie was like this, because you can just tell from every single frame of the entire movie that people actually put creativity into making it. Unlike nowadays where it's like all trash and it looks like shit. There's a lot of like creativity in terms of like it feels like every single aspect of the movie was talked about and was controlled in a way where every single thing mattered. The wardrobes, the makeup, the hairstyling. Of course, he gives them all haircuts too. And I didn't like some of those haircuts, but I did like a couple of them. I mean, that would be a good video to do if you're like a really hardcore fan, is to like rank all the haircuts in this movie. I'm trying to decide which haircut was my favorite, because one thing that I was kind of surprised by was that he never gave Kim a haircut. You know, Winona Ryder's character, she had the same long haircut the entire movie. And for some reason, I think I had some kind of Mandela effect thing where I thought that she had shorter hair by the end of the movie, and I thought, oh, he's going to cut her hair too, probably. Nope, never cuts her hair. And now let's talk about, because I guess I've gone through his, I mean, what is he? I mean, I've gone through that quite a bit. I guess I should talk about the romance. This movie has a surprisingly good romance. I wouldn't say it's the greatest romance because I don't think it really had the time to develop. I mean, Kim, she decides that she likes him all of a sudden when she sees him on television. And one thing to note in this movie is that every single character uses Edward for something. You know, like there's not a single person in the entire movie who doesn't use him to do something. Like even Winona Ryder's character, at one point her boyfriend forces her to use him to come pull off this robbery in his own house. The fucking idiotic bully guy, which we'll talk about. And later on in the movie, near the end, she actually grabs Edward's hand and she's going to use one of his scissors to kill her boyfriend. And I thought, well, that would be a funny thing to do because you're basically framing him for murder by doing that. And just thinking like, you know, she used him as well. You know, everyone in this entire town, the mom, the son, the father, every single person in this whole town was using him and not really treating him like a person. Well, I guess the family kind of treated him like a person, but, well, okay, here's what I wanted to talk about earlier. At one point, the dad, he actually made a very valid point. You know, Edward, he's got some scissor cutting abilities. He's going around giving free haircuts. He's trimming people's hedges for free and turning them into magical creations that are just fucking phenomenal. Just beautiful works of art. And he's doing it all for free, as I said. And the dad says, like, why aren't you charging for any of that? Like, I mean, that would be, like, the most obvious thing to do. Like, come on. Nowadays, you'd see Edward Scissorhands on TikTok. He'd be on TikTok, and he'd be making millions. He'd have, like, a girlfriend that's like a sugar baby or something, and he wouldn't really realize it, and then he'd get his heart broken and kill himself, probably. That's what would happen to Edward Scissorhands in 2024. Just so you guys know. But the father says, like, the mother says first, she says that, well, this one woman gave him cookies after he gave her a haircut or trimmed her bushes or something, and the dad says that cookies can't buy the necessities of life. And I was like, well, wait a second. What necessities of life does Edward need? Edward has been proven to not need to drink anything. He's been proven to not need to eat anything. He's been proven to probably not to sleep, because when we first see him, he's just kind of wandering around. So, like, does he sleep? Does he need to sleep? Probably not. Does he need to take a bath? I guess not. Never see him do that. Never even tackle that. I mean, that would be a whole other thing. Does he need a house? Yes, he obviously needs privacy. He needs a house. But that's about it. He doesn't need to eat. He doesn't need to sleep. He basically doesn't need to do anything except stand around and be entertained and help people, because it makes him feel better. So, like, that's what I'm saying, is that, like, because they don't really answer these essential questions, it kind of leaves you thinking, like, what really is he? Besides this kind of mythical character that, you know, you're just like, ooh, ah. It's Edward Scissorhands, ooh. You know, that's kind of the whole movie. You know, the music is very, very good. I mean, the music is fantastical and whimsical and fun and magical, and just, it's really, really good. It gets dark at certain points, too. I really like that. So, yeah, like, I think what I would have preferred, by the way, in order to kind of answer these questions, I was kind of waiting for it, is the whole thing with the doctors. You know, earlier on in the movie, they have this little barbecue in order to show him around to all the guys in the neighborhood and all the housewives. And at that point, there's this guy, and he says, I have a doctor friend who can fix your hands. And I thought that would have been a very good scene to have in here, by the way. Like, a scene where you see him at the doctor's, and the doctor says, this is really weird. Somehow, he has all the human organs, but he's also part machine, blah, 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 blah. Like, just a little tiny explanation scene, I guess. A little scene like that in order to just answer these couple of little questions so that it doesn't leave me, like, questioning the whole movie, you know? Because if he doesn't have motivation to buy the necessities of life, then why is the dad asking about that at all? You know, he can't even drive a car. How is he supposed to drive a fucking car? He can't drive. He can't drive. So, I mean, what does he need money for? Really? See? I mean, he doesn't even have a social security number. Remember? That's a little part in the movie. It was really funny. He was going to open up his own salon. And I really love this part. And then they show bank. And the bank, it is the ugliest building the entire movie. It's just this ugly, terrible-looking building. And you see this bank guy, and he's like, you don't have any credit. You don't have any car. You don't have any social security number. You know, like, just this complete tool. This bureaucratic tool. And Edward's just sitting there like, I just don't know what this guy's problem is, you know. This is my Edward Scissorhand impression. And by the way, I'm really glad that Edward Scissorhands was able to talk, because I was also under the impression that he never talked the entire movie. You know, that's another thing. I don't know why, but I was under the impression of that, and that turned me off as well. Because just thinking about spending a whole movie with someone who can't talk in some kind of way really makes me want to jump off a cliff. Anyways, Winona Ryder's relationship with this character, it is a little bit underdeveloped because they're not really able to get into the romance. You know, they're they're kind of hindered by the constant involvement of the boyfriend. You know, the boyfriend, she breaks up with him, and it's one of those things where you also wonder, why did she ever date him to begin with? You know, and I'm telling you guys, we see this cliche over and over and over again. You have this girl, she's really in love with the main character, but she's currently dating this jackass guy, this just sleazebag shit fuckhead, bitch titty fucker, bitch fucking shit fuck. she's she's dating this complete prick. Why though? Why is she dating this guy? There's no reason. It's Anthony Michael Hall. I mean, ugh. I mean, we've seen him like it's really weird with Anthony Michael Hall because he is one of the only people in the universe or in the history of Hollywood who has been able to play a nerd and a jock, bully type of character. I mean, isn't it weird that he was able to do that? He was in The Breakfast Club, and then he's in this. It wasn't really as surprising to me because I've seen his Tales from the Crypt episode, which is one of my all-time favorites. And he played this jock in high school, and he couldn't pass this class, and he was going to get kicked off the football team. And so he has this nerdy girl help him do a similar type of thing where he's going to set her up. And then there's a twist and another twist. It's a really good episode. It's called Creep Course. I watch it every year around Halloween. But it's so weird how he can play a jock and a nerd. Because they're like two completely separate stereotypes. And the fact that he's able to play both so well. You know, this character of Jim, he is so... Ugh. There is just nothing redeeming about this character. But at the same time, he's still a great character. I mean, I honestly, too, I gotta say, I loved almost every character in this movie. I love the mom a lot. I also love the police officer. You know, the one who's gonna shoot Edward, and then he learns about him, and he really cares for Edward, and I really liked his character a lot. So and also, I think another favorite scene, I'll go through the whole movie naming my favorite scenes. I'll just say, like, my review would be, I fucking loved the movie all the way up until the very end, because the very end did not make sense in any way, shape, or form. The ending is a travesty. The ending, I wish I could cut off and not remember ever, because it does not work at all, no matter what anyone says. But another scene I really loved was when Edward was embracing Winona Ryder's character. Because, you know, all throughout the movie, he's having a lot of trouble doing just basic things without screwing things up because he's got scissors for hands. And it's just really, really a beautiful moment where she puts herself in under his arm and embraces him herself. And it's just a really, really touching moment. And it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Just this movie is like just amazing. I just can't believe I never heard that anyone say this movie was good. And no one ever said he never died at the end. Why didn't people tell me that? That's really irritating. It's really, really irritating. Another thing to mention is that Edward Scissorhands gets Me Too'd. There's this housewife. She's kind of hot. She's not as hot as Winona Ryder, her character of Kim, but she's kind of hot, I guess. she's a little hot. She's got too much. She's doing too much. You know. I thought her hair was fake too, because I thought maybe the actress would not want her hair to actually be cut like this, so maybe she's wearing like a wig, and the wig was cut a certain way. I don't really know about that. I'd have to look it up, which I definitely will. Like, this movie is like one of my all-time favorite movies now, which is really cool because now I can tell people, hey, you should watch this movie because he doesn't die at the end. And that's really cool. He just suffers a fate that's worse than death, like Kim Wexler supposedly did on Better Call Saul. You know, the fate that she suffered where she actually didn't suffer at all, except for the part where she cries on a public bus. And and she becomes a housewife and gets everything she wants. That's a fate that's worse than death to Kim Wexler. Oh god, that show fucking sucked. And I'm still fucking pissed about that shitty ass season 6. You're damn straight I am. But this housewife, she's having Edward work for her at her salon, which is really cool. I love movies about cutting hair for obvious reasons. And she takes him to the back room. You know, she's going full on Harvey Weinstein with Edward Scissorhands. She takes him to the back room, and she's like, "You want to watch me model some what are they called, smocks?" And she's like seducing him, and she's taking off all her clothes, and then she climbs on top of him. And she's starting to rape him, basically. I mean, she makes him take off her little outfit thing, her jacket thing, which reveals her lingerie. And then she's starting to kiss him, and he gets really upset because he doesn't want her to rape him. And he pushes her away, and the chair falls back, and he runs away, literally. And she gets really upset. And so what does she do? Well, she pulls a Me Too. You know, she pulls a typical, like, modern day Me Too. And she claims that he tried to do something to her. And he scissored her up, and he threatened her with his knives. And he raped her and everything. And, you know, she Me Too'd Edward Scissorhands. And so that was the part of the movie where it got really sad, kind of, because the town started to hate him. You know, they wanted to have this Christmas party at the end, too, which I knew was going to be a terrible idea because this town is just so evil and hateful and shitty and small townish. And literally no one from the town came to this party, to this Christmas party. And I thought that was really upsetting because it looked like it would have been a really, really fun party to me. Like, I just thought, like, wow, I wish I was there. Like, this is such a beautiful set. It's so colorful. There's so much color in this movie. I'm telling you, like, if all movies looked like this movie, people would actually go to the theaters and pay to see movies nowadays. That's the truth. Like, the reason why people aren't going to see movies anymore is because they don't look like Edward Scissorhands anymore. They look like, let's see, what was the last shitty-ass movie I watched? Oh, yeah, Ghostbusters. Ugh, God. Ugh. Ugh. I mean, that movie was ugly as hell, filled with computer generation. Ugh. Ugh. See what I mean? Like, I would be happy, more than happy, to go to the theaters and pay $20 to see this movie. I would much rather do that than pay $1 to see the next new release movie. What's the next new release movie? The Godzilla X Kong? Fuck that shit. You know, I want to go see this movie in the theater. I want to go see a real movie. I'll pay $20. I'll pay $40 to see Edward Scissorhands on the big screen before I ever pay to see Godzilla X Kong for $1. And that's the truth. Sorry. If you don't like it, then fuck off. Because, I mean, I just... This movie is just so... It's so good. It's so good. And the town treats him terribly. They don't like him because of this robbery that he did not even want to do. He was set up, and then he does not snitch on the bad guys, by the way, which I thought was really cool, because it showed he is really like human in some way. He has humanity to him. However, how much humanity does he really have? I don't know. I would speculate he has about 59% humanity. Like 59 to 60 something percent. Like but not really completely. Because I guess he doesn't need to eat or drink or go to the bathroom, but he does it anyway. I don't know. They never really talk about it. And yeah, eventually, there's all these misunderstandings that happen because, it's a really delicate situations with his Scissorhands. And the boyfriend gets really mad that she broke up with him. And so then he has his friend who's really drunk drive in a fury back to her house, which... At that point, I was really pissed off at that point because I was like, you know what, Anthony Michael Hall? Instead of sitting around drinking alcohol, why don't you get up off your fucking ass and just walk over to her house? Because this town is so small, he could have literally walked over there in like a minute or less, It was ridiculous. Like, you're going to have to drive me back over there. Why? Why did he have to drive him over there? The house is like right down the street. I'm going to take my medicine too. Sorry guys, I like to do that. I like to take my medicine at a certain time. And so, that was really frustrating. Like, he really did not need to drive him at all. He could have walked there. Like, why did they need to drive anywhere in this town? Why do they even need cars? This town is smaller than Pleasantville. It's a really small town. And so when he comes back, he almost runs over the young boy. Edward jumps in and saves him and accidentally cuts his hands and cuts his face a little bit. It's very sad because he's just trying to make sure that the kid's okay. And by the way, Johnny Depp did a great job in this movie. In this movie. He is a really good actor when he wants to be. And then he runs away, and everyone comes after him, and it gets really, really ugly. And what's terrible is that, people can... This is why I thought the town would kill him, why it was so believable, is because he doesn't want to fight back because he knows the damage that his Scissorhands can do. So, like, there's this part where the bully, Jim, he fights him and he shoves him on the ground and just smashes his head into the ground. And, Edward does not want to fight back because he knows that he could easily, like, kill him. But he doesn't want to do that. So, he runs away. And it ends up where you have this classic, like, iconic masterpiece movie confrontation between the love interest, Jim, and Edward. And Edward kills Jim on accident or on purpose. I wasn't really sure. I thought it was on accident because he just doesn't want to kill anyone. And it's just a really powerful moment because at that point, that if the town, this shitty town of people, that no matter how much explaining the Kim tries to do, no matter how much evidence, because, I mean, the police, they'll take Jim's body, they'll be able to analyze and figure out that, like, this is not murder, this is accidental. You know, they'd be able to tell that, you know, so there's some questions at the end here, because what happens is there's this decision that's made where she has to leave and pretend like he's dead. And it's just a really heartbreaking moment. And then also she grabs one of his Scissorhands from the laboratory, which I love that laboratory set. It's so cool. It's so creative. It's so artistic. And you can't call this movie pretentious, too. That's another thing. You know, I really hate it when you have a movie that's really beautiful and it's artistic and creative and people call it pretentious because it was made well, because it was crafted by someone who's an artist and not someone who's a tool for the MCU. You know, it was crafted by someone who actually had a mind of his own, who had a style and had a world that he created and characters, and then people diminish it and they reduce it down to, oh, this movie's pretentious because it's artsy and because it's beautiful. And I love the laboratory in this movie, though. Like, I wish there was a sequel to this movie so badly. They couldn't, because they fucked up at the end. They pulled a Ghost of Mrs. Muir. But at least in the Ghost and Mrs. Muir, she actually got with the ghost at the end. In this movie, it's like, fuck that. We're going to have this really sad, depressing, heartbreaking ending. But it is better than him dying, I guess. She pretends that he tried to kill Jim and Jim tried to kill him, and they killed each other, and the ceiling collapsed on Edward. Now, that might work for the stupid, dumb Me Too movement townspeople, you know, the cancel culture townspeople, but that's not going to work for the police. That's not going to work for the FBI. You know, whomever gets involved investigating this crime. Because, like, you just you think about the obvious. Like, this town, they didn't believe a police officer when the police officer shot up in the air and pretended like he killed Edward or something. But then they're going to believe this girl, this 17-year-old girl, that Edward is dead and the ceiling collapsed on him. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, just because she has his hand, like one of the hands in the laboratory. I mean, come on. Because they showed the whole town, like, walking away, except for, like, the one who Me Too'd him. She was kind of, like, sad a little bit, I guess, but, like, they really should have had one of them try to investigate or something. I don't know, like, it just... The ending is where it fell apart. Because at that point, like, okay, what happened to Jim's body? Like, they went there, they got Jim's body, and they didn't even go and look inside the castle? Is that what you're telling me? Are you telling me that no kids ever went in the castle? Like a classic type of scene where, like, the kids go in the castle to fool around, or they go in there to party, like in that shitty Goosebumps series where they go into that guy's house and they don't know that he lives there now, and they throw the Halloween party. Like, why didn't anyone ever go in this really cool castle that is really easy to get to? Like, I would go there every day. If I lived in that town, I'd go in there. I'd make a donation to the Spank Bank. I'd have a pizza party. I'd try to call Winona Ryder and see if she'll pick up the phone and invite her over to come hang out in the castle. Like, you know, it's a castle. It's the perfect place, and the ending screws you because the ending tells you it actually wants you to believe that within the next 50 years of this woman's life, no one ever goes up to that castle ever again. I could see if it was really hard to get to the castle, but it's not. It's like a video game where you could travel from the town to the castle on foot. You wouldn't even need fast travel. You know, where you teleport. You could just walk up there. Like the fucking mountains in Skyrim are harder to climb than the castle is harder to get to in this fucking movie. So, like, at the ending, basically, Edward is left all alone in this castle for years and years and years. And Kim, she gets married and has children. She moves on. She never visits him. She's in love with him. She never visits him. She never tells her parents and the brother the truth. She lets Edward be alone for the rest of his life. What the hell? Like, what's up with that? Like, what a terrible love interest. Like, how could she do that to him? Like, are you kidding me? I'm sure that the town would be fine, like, if she went up there and they'd think, like, oh, she's just going up there to be sad about her boyfriend dying. And then she could go into the castle and hang out with Edward and hug him for 10 hours like he's Neil Breen. But, like, no, she never visits him. And because the whole movie, she's telling the story to her grandchild. She's, like, 80 years old. And the grandchild is actually, like, cool. And she's like, why don't you ever go visit him? He's still there, like, what the hell? And she's like, I don't want to because I'm an old lady now. And I want him to remember me for who I was as a young girl. And it's like, are you shitting me? Are you fucking shitting me? Kim? You suck. How could you do that to Edward? I mean, who's the real villain here? Jim or you? How could you do that to Edward? And he's still alive, too, because they know. Because she said it never snowed in their town before. But it snowed ever since he was there and then he left. And that's because he's making ice sculptures up in the castle. And when he makes ice sculptures, the little flakes from the ice come down like snow. He's literally like God to this town, providing them with snow. And, Kim. Oh, Kim. I am convinced at this point, if you make a character named Kim, she's not going to turn out to be a nice person. You know, she's going to turn out to be a bad egg, like a Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Speaking of which, I'm really glad that they haven't made a modern-day Edward Scissorhands, because I feel like that little twink femboy fuck Timothy Chalamet, I feel like they would love to make him Edward Scissorhands. I'm so glad that they haven't, though, because if they do, there'll be hell to pay. I will launch a reviewing tirade against that movie. Like, that'll be like my number one like fixation on this channel. I will pull a Goosebumps on that fucking movie if they try to make that, because that would not be good at all. You know what would be good, though? A video game. What I would do to fix this terrible ending that sucks, you know what, is I would say to make like a Telltale game, like they did with Back to the Future. And this could be the real sequel. This could be something where it's like, oh no, actually, she did visit him all along, and they went on adventures together and stuff. Because because another thing to mention is, if he is really human, or however much human he is, can he procreate? Because if she continued her relationship with him, they'd be having sex at some point. Because that's part of relationships. People nowadays, they don't really think that people should do that anymore. Or they think that they should have intimacy coordinators around if they do that. Probably that's what they think. Or you have to wait until you're 100 to do that, because like the age of consent, it's like if you're 18, that's still not good enough for Twitter. Twitter's really, really weird. But anyways, like, would he be able to make a child with her? That's another thing. So, to me, make a Telltale video game sequel where it takes place after the first movie. You could have all the characters come back, because it would all be voice acting, and you could just have her and Edward go on adventures together to some other land that we haven't seen yet. It would be really, really good. I guarantee it. That'd be pretty cool. Because, like, this ending, they try to make it this really powerful and emotional ending. And it would be powerful. It would be emotional if it made sense that would happen. If it would, all the stuff made sense. But it doesn't make sense. That's the problem. The ending is completely illogical. It's really kind of irritating. But at the same time, I love the movie so much, I don't even care. Like, this is definitely like one of the best movies ever made. And also, it's a lot better than Wednesday, but I'll still say that I think that Wednesday, in terms of Tim Burton, it feels like he is getting back to how he was before. Kind of, a little bit. There is somewhat of like a repetitive nature with him. Of like, he likes to tell similar stories with similar characters. A lot of the same stereotypes. Because the whole thing with the stuff in Wednesday with Gomez and Morticia in the past, that reminded me of, like, the stuff that happened at the end of this movie. Like, I could just imagine if you put Edward Scissorhands as Gomez, and then you put Morticia as Kim, and then that other guy, that other tool, that dweeby guy, if you put him as Jim, it would totally work. I mean, it would totally work. So anyways, I hope that Beetlejuice 2 is good, because Beetlejuice 2, actually, I really like the trailer. I didn't do a trailer review because I don't do trailer reviews, but I would also say that movie looks like it could be really, really good. I'm really excited for that movie a lot, and I hope that Tim Burton continues to get better and better, because it seems like he's out of his rut. I think that Wednesday really helped him, because he had all the creative freedom. And he, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened, because for a couple of years, he kind of turned into like a sellout and a hack, and it seemed like he could never make a good movie again. And it was kind of depressing, because he's a very good filmmaker, or so it seemed. And Wednesday really, really put him back on track, in my opinion. In terms of food, I was going to give this movie spaghetti, because spaghetti's my favorite food. I reserve spaghetti for all the best movies ever. However, that ending is upsetting. And if I never thought that he died at the end, I would have been a lot more disappointed with the ending, because frankly, I'm really just kind of happy that he didn't die at the end, and that's kind of preventing me from seeing the ending is even as bad as it really is. The ending is bad. It is a bad ending. It's illogical. It's trash. It could have been really sad and good if they just made it make sense. You know? Like, maybe if he made it so that, like, half of the castle collapsed, so he was never able to get out of the castle again, that could have been a way, maybe, but then still he could find some way to get her up there. So that doesn't work. Never mind. So see, like, there's just no way. Like, they did not make it make sense. So I'm going to give it a rating that I've never given any movie before. And that is, as a kid, I was thinking about what food have I had in the past that was a work of art. Because that's how this movie can be described. It's a work of art. Well, as a kid, I was on a vacation, and I went to this restaurant and had this double brownie sundae. And it was a huge sundae. It was practically, I think it was as big as like a little aquarium that you put like a lizard in or something. Like, it was almost as big as that. It was a double brownie fudge sundae. It had peanuts in it, brownies, ice cream, fudge, whipped cream, ice cream. It was delicious. And I shared it with one other person. And eating that entire thing, I don't think I've ever eaten that many calories in one sitting, even when I was at my most overweight, when I was like in middle school and high school and stuff. Like, when there were some times where I'd drink like an entire 24 pack of Dr. Pepper in one day. So, like, you know, I never had that as many calories, though, I swear, as this brownie sundae. And to me, this movie really is that brownie sundae, because but I just loved it, even though I realized at the end I probably ate way too much. It was really, really good, so I really don't care. Like, I would eat it again. Like, if I could find it, I would go back there right now. I would eat it. Well, if Winona Ryder told me not to eat it, I wouldn't eat it. But otherwise, I would definitely eat that entire thing. Because just this movie is just perfect. It's just so good. The thing too that I can't imagine, I'm really envious of, is this movie's like the perfect date movie. It's like utterly perfect. And I'm thinking, like, there's got to be some people who were in high school when this movie came out in 1990, December 14th. And what was it like as a teenager to take a girl to see this movie in the theaters while you're in high school in the 1990s? Like, that just sounds like a dream, all in and of itself. Like, that just sounds like the ultimate fantasy. Like, to be in high school in the 90s and take a girl to see Edward Scissorhands. Because I just feel like you could never have that type of magical experience nowadays. I mean, what would you go see? This is actually a debacle that this is a conundrum that I faced in freshman year of high school. If you read my book, I asked out this slutty volleyball bitch named Rachel, and I was going to take her to the movies, and there was nothing to see. I'll tell you guys the movies that we had to see on that weekend. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Neighbors with Seth Rogen, and that's about it. There was nothing else to see. And those movies are not very good, to say the least. And it just feels like you could never have that experience nowadays. You could never And I think that that just needs to be said too. Like, you think about, why aren't people going to the movies? Because you have a lot of teenagers who want to go on a date with each other, and they're like, hey, let's go to the movies. What do we go see? I don't know. Okay, let's just stay home. Because, like, what movie nowadays is Edward Scissorhands? What movie could they go see together? Ghostbusters? Ew, gross. Drive Away Dolls? No, thank you. I'd rather, I don't know, have sex with a pair of scissors. I don't know, like, what would they go see? Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney? No thanks. Kung Fu Panda? No thanks. So what are they going to see? What's the movie that teenagers are going to see that would be worthy of, like, Edward Scissorhands? That's a valid question. You guys got millions of dollars, you got all the resources you want, and you can't produce one Edward Scissorhands a year? I mean, what'd you have last year? Barbie? Fuck Barbie. Barbie was a piece of fucking pink dog shit. Fuck. You got nothing. Nothing. Nobody has anything on Edward Scissorhands. The real tragedy at the end of this movie is that Hollywood sucks, and you'll never have a movie like Edward Scissorhands again. They'd rather have Edward Lena, where Edward is now a girl, and it's all about her fight with the patriarchy and how the evil patriarchy doesn't like a girl with scissor hands because they want women to have real hands so that they can cook and make sandwiches. You know, that's the movie they'd make nowadays. And they'd have Margot Robbie playing Edward Lena and shit. And they make the movie pink. The movie would just be all pink. They had a lot of pink in this movie. It was very beautiful. Very beautiful movie. Anyways, please like this video and comment. I could go on for longer. I could honestly... This movie is for sure going to be a commentary movie. Just so you guys know, I am putting this on the calendar for my birthday this year. I'm going to get another Winona Ryder cake, obviously. And I'm going to be doing a commentary for this movie because I just can't imagine any other way of spending my birthday than doing a commentary for Edward Scissorhands. And then please comment and tell me, I don't know, this is like an hour and a million minute long video. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon for Godzilla x Kong, I believe. Bye.